I'm Maddie Brockmeyer.
And I'm Julia Droptrack.
And we're News Channel 14.
Today we'll be discussing education back in the 1860s to the present day.
With the 2016 presidential election coming up, education is a hot topic. Democratic candidates have been pushing for reforms in education, including the lowering of college tuition.
Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton have been the biggest candidates for this issue.
Before any reforms are made, we think it's a good idea for the people to understand the development of our public and higher education system and how things became the way they are now.
Before the 1800s, education wasn't really a part of everyday lifestyle for young kids. But then eventually, people began to realize that it was key to society and security. It maintained a prosperous and stable democratic government, and it also assimilated immigrants to society.
In 1827, Massachusetts passed a law making all grades in public school open to all pupils free of charge. Then in 1865 to 1895, states made laws requiring students at the age of 8 to 14 to attend at least 12 to 16 weeks of school. Of course, this was mainly for white children, as racism was very blatant and abundant at this time, and schools were often segregated. Public education for African Americans was not really established until around the 1940s.
In 1890, fewer than 1% of African Americans attended high school. They still tried to receive an education through public funded schools, but oftentimes this didn't work so well because they didn't receive the sufficient amount of funding they needed, so therefore they became behind in schools.
In the book Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred D. Taylor, it kind of describes a situation that young Black Americans went through in their education system. In the book textbooks that we have today, there's a column where it kind of describes the condition of the book, and that's written in every year. Back then, they had it too. And in the book, the main character describes what she sees when she, a young Black American, opens up her school textbook that is falling apart and opens it up to that first cover to see that list. And what it reads is new, used, good, decent, not so good.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last line is Negro. So white schools would take their textbooks, use them until they deemed it unfitting for white children, and then was the only time that it was decent for Black Americans.
That's just horrible. I mean, at least immigrants, however, had a different approach on education. They were actually socially accepted and encouraged to go to public schools to Americanize their culture.
It was also very successful in an outcome in teaching immigrants the English language and offering adults night classes and day classes.
Mm-hmm. The sociality department was also established to spread the language and actually the lifestyle of Americans.
In 1820, the first public high school known as Boston English was established. High school was created because of the industrial age. Advanced technical and managing skills were demanded, so they needed a way for people to acquire the skills needed for higher intelligent jobs.
And demand and stuff like that. But that led to 500,000 students to attend high school. Those students were then required to take core classes such as civics, social studies, and science.
And these classes in high school were mainly just the basics, but it prepared people for jobs and then also gave them the opportunity to advance on to higher education like college.
But Maddie, only 2.3% of people had a college degree.
Well, that's because it was a developing system. In 1880 through 1920, only a few professional schools in law and medicine were established, as well as research universities.
But before 1901, there was no universal entrance exam to require you to go into college. But in the late 1800s, leading Americans universities were also considered concerned if students were prepared for college level course. So the college entrance exam, so they formed a college entrance exam board. And working together, they administrated the first standard exam in 1901.
This enabled students to take one single exam and apply it to several universities instead of taking one for every single university that is different.
Also, in 1901, Joliet Junior College opened up. It was the first public community college in the U.S.
At the end of the era of kind of creating this education system, which is the years about 1870 to 1920, the illiteracy rate in America decreases from 20% to only 6%.
That's a crazy drop.
I know!
And college was so cheap too. In the late 1950s, many families could afford college, even though far fewer than today thought it was necessary.
Now, however, the average tuition for a public 4-year college is $9,139. The average tuition for a private 4-year college is $31,231.
How did it get so expensive? Let's ask our good friend Bernie Sanders, a Democratic presidential candidate in favor of free tuition. We'll see what he knows about this topic.
Bernie,
Hey, we got a few questions for you.
How did America's colleges become so expensive?
30 years ago, the United States led the world in terms of the percentage of our people who graduated college. Today, we are in 12th place.
I think there are a number of factors, and I think the universities and colleges themselves deserve a good part of the blame. The cost of college is going up a lot faster than inflation, no question about that. On the other hand, what you're seeing is state government withdrawing the kinds of funding that it used to provide for colleges.
Why should we lower the cost of college tuition?
You raised the question. If somebody is bright and has the ability, not everybody, and has the desire to get a higher education, should we say to that person, no, sorry, you can't do that because you don't have enough money, or you're going to leave school $80,000 in debt? Or do we say, hey, we need your brains, we need your energy to make us a competitive global economic nation?
And then on top of that, you have millions of people who have graduated college and are now deeply in debt.
What do you think are some ways that we could fix this?
We'll introduce legislation that will make every public college and public university tuition free. Is that expensive? And the answer is yeah, it is expensive, but it is more expensive not to do that.
Sanders,
Wow, thank you for
talking
answering
to
that
us.
question. Yeah, very clearing things up for us.
Good luck in the
Election.
coming debates and election. Education is something that everyone should have knowledge about.
Knowledge, yeah. I mean, this will help you, obviously throughout the presidential elections and stuff like that, and, actually, the golden age for education is considered in the 1960s.
So our goal should kind of be to change that and make the golden age for education now. With all the reforms we have and all the different laws we have set in place, it's kind of ridiculous that now isn't considered the golden age.
Sorry. Got choked up over that one.
And Julia just got so sad.
We need to better our education today. Well,
I'm Maddie Brockmeyer,
and I'm Julia Droptruck.
and this is
News Channel 14. Thank you for watching.
Signing out.
Until next week.